Hello and welcome to FP Live. I'm Ravi Agrawal, Foreign Policy's Editor-in-Chief. It has been a very consequential year for the Middle East, and each day seems to be adding to it. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Bibi as he's called, met U.S. President Donald Trump at the White House on Monday over a dinner lasting several hours. It was Bibi's third visit to Washington this year. The two met again on Tuesday night to discuss a possible ceasefire deal in Gaza. That one was closed door. In a moment, we will hear from a three-time Pulitzer Prize winner on how to make sense of the bigger trends at play here. If this is your first time joining us on FP Live, here's how we do it. We often take subscriber questions. You can join in too. Use the code SUMMER50 for this magazine's biggest ever discount. Sign up. So there's a lot to discuss today. The U.S. Israel relationship, the future of Israel, what happens next with Iran, and what all of that means for the broader Middle East. I have the perfect guest to talk about it all. Tom Friedman is the New York Times' foreign affairs opinion columnist. He's the author of several best-selling books, including, of course, From Beirut to Jerusalem and many others. And he joins me now. Tom, welcome to FP Live.
Ravi, great to be with you. And as an FP subscriber, I'm doubly happy to be here.
It's our pleasure. Thanks for subscribing as well. So let's start with this. Does Netanyahu even want a ceasefire deal?
It's a good question and a good way to frame it, Ravi. He wants his ceasefire deal. So his ceasefire deal would be a ceasefire for 60 days that would return about half of the hostages and unfortunately corpses of Israeli hostages in return for Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails. And then, as I say, a 60-day ceasefire. After that, though, he wants the right to resume the war, just as he did with the last ceasefire, why he broke it. And he wants that because his domestic political needs require it. That the two far-right members of his cabinet, or I should say the two farthest right members of his cabinet, Bezalel Smotrich and Ben Gvir, the security minister, are both insisting that the war continue until what Bibi called total victory. And so the reason I would suggest, Ravi, that the meetings with Trump are so private, so intense, is that they're talking not only leader to leader, but politician to politician.
Explain what that means.
That Bibi is explaining to Trump, these are my political needs. And we're going to have to operate within them if you want this ceasefire. Now, what Trump is saying on the other side, I don't know. I know what Jim Baker, who I covered, would be saying, and that's that your political needs are subordinate to America's interests. And America's interests require a ceasefire right now. We want this war over. You figure out the politics of it, but don't come back here until you have.
And where do the other regional players fit into this? There's Saudi Arabia, of course, Qatar, which is trying to mediate this round. How do they fit in?
Well, Ravi, there's a two-ring circus here going on, and they're actually interconnected. So there's the question of the ceasefire in Gaza. How do you get that consolidated? Because again, Hamas wants an end to the war. They want to be sure that at the end of the 60 days, Israel will not resume the war and expel Hamas. So that drama is going on in one circle. In the other circle, there's the question of how you harvest the military achievements of the 12-day war against Iran. And can you basically put together this long-term security alliance that the United States, starting with the Biden administration, has been trying to do, that would forge a U.S.-Saudi security treaty that the U.S. Congress would then endorse in return for Saudi Arabia normalizing relations with Israel. So I would suggest, Ravi, that the other reason the talks are so secret, just probably 4 eyes or 8 eyes, I don't know, with Trump and Bibi and his staff, is because they're trying to see if they can fill the gap between what I would call MBS, the leader of Saudi Arabia's bottom line, in terms of what he will accept in terms of Israeli commitments to work toward Palestinian statehood, and Bibi's top line, what he's ready to offer consistent with his politics. My own view of this is I'm very dubious that gap can be closed. So when people tell me that Bibi, it's all closed, that he's found the language, that they'll figure out how to scratch their left ear with their right hand and hocus pocus on the Palestinian issue, I don't think that's going to fly with the Saudis.
Mm,
Remember what MBS has been through, the Saudi leader. Since the murder of Khashoggi by his government, uh, he's really been isolated. Ravi, he's finally worked his way out of that isolation. Do you really think he's going to give away the Palestinian store right now? Remember, also domestically, he's gored many oxen with his religious and governmental reforms. And so I think his bottom line is still going to be very close to some firm, time defined Israeli commitment to pursue the project of Palestinian statehood, provided the Palestinians also get their act together. On Bibi's side, do you really think he's going to turn to the settlers, who have been his basically foundation of his politics now for almost 17 years as prime minister, and say to them, "Sorry guys, it's over. Too bad. Those settlements, we're not doing that anymore. Everything I said was off. We're not going to pursue a Palestinian state, whether it's in one step, two steps, or three steps." That would be not only politically dangerous for him, Ravi, that would be physically dangerous.
mm,
I believe if you check the news feed from Jerusalem today, you'll see that some radical settlers burned his car. That was a warning to him. Trust me.
mm.
And so the ability of Trump to close that gap between MBS's bottom line and Bibi's top line, I think it's going to be very difficult.
That's a great way of looking at it. I want to talk a little bit more about the domestic situation in Israel because, I mean, you've described, Tom, that what's happening in Gaza is a moral stain. I think that's the phrase you used. What is the longer term damage to Israel's reputation, its soft power, and how much does that matter politically at home?
Well, I've been saying for a long time now that this Israeli government, not Israel as a state or the Zionist project, but this Israeli government is the biggest threat to the Jewish people right now because its actions in Gaza at this stage make no sense at all. Every day you're seeing 20, 30, sometimes more Palestinians killed going just to line up for food. That's travesty. That cannot, should, and should not be happening. Secondly, if you follow the Israeli press right now, what you will see is that there's a huge fight going on between Eyal Zamir, the chief of staff of the army, and the political echelon, particularly Netanyahu's right-wing colleagues, who are basically saying, where are we going here? We won this war. This has been the craziest war. I've never been able to figure it out from the very beginning, but we are, well past, I think, 18 months into this war, and Bibi still never defined what its political objective is. And so, because of that, there's a sense that, from the world's point of view, people are dying and being killed for no particular political end, let alone one that could say, hey, we had to fight this war. This was a war of necessity, but we fought this war, so there will be no more wars. So we will be able to nurture, cooperate with, and facilitate a legitimate Palestinian partner to bring all this to an end. And when you don't have that as your stated goal, your only goal is total victory, because that's the only way you can hold your coalition together. There's a lot of people in the world, Rob, who say this is not on, especially a young generation that's only getting their news through images of Palestinians, killed and injured in Gaza. And I don't have to, you can only just look at the election in New York City for the Democratic primary, see who won and what platform he won on, to know that there is a young generation, and not only young generation, of American Jews who are just not good with this at all. And what I have been warning Israel is that one day Gaza war will be over. And when it is, right now, as a journalist, you cannot go into Gaza independently. You have to go with an Israeli pool controlled by them. And people really see the devastation there. That's going to be a bad day for Israel and a bad day for the Jewish people. And my great fear is my grandchildren grow up in a world very different from the one I grew up in, that they will know what it is to be Jewish in a world where the Jewish state is a pariah state. And I think that would be a real tragedy for Israel and the Jewish people. This is not to in any way relieve what Hamas did. What Hamas did was basically a strategy. First of all, it was the single stupidest war I've ever seen. What is Hamas negotiating for right now, Ravi? What are their two demands? Israel out of Gaza and a permanent ceasefire. Israel out of Gaza and a permanent ceasefire. What did Hamas have on October 6th, 2023? Israel out of Gaza and a permanent ceasefire. They sacrificed tens of thousands of lives of Palestinians fighting a war from their tunnels, which they allowed no Palestinian civilians to hide in, to get back to exactly where they were the day before the war started.